Amen. So we're here on the beautiful campus of Penn State. I'm told that there's a saying that you have that if I say we are, you'll say Penn State. All right. And so we're here, and your mascot is the Nittany Lion, and we're here with someone who embodies qualities just like the Nittany Lion, someone who's courageous, someone who's tenacious, someone who keeps going and fights, and will continue to get back up even if they're backed into a corner. And so we're here tonight with a good friend of mine, our Lieutenant Governor and our next U.S. Senator, John Fetterman. So John, we're here with just a few of our closest friends tonight to have just a little conversation. How are you doing?
Yeah. How are you? Yeah.
I'm doing pretty good. We're just going to jump right in. Ahead of the 2020 presidential election, you talked a lot about Erie. Why is that, and what makes Erie so critically political?
Yeah, I think Erie is special for a lot of different reasons, you know. Of course, it's not here to pander. You know, here, I mean, I come to Erie all the time. It's one of my family's favorite vacation place, of course. And it's also one of the ultimate bellwether county, not just in Pennsylvania, if not nationally true. And I believe that you can't win Pennsylvania if you can't win Erie. And in 2020, I would, speaking to all the national media, and I all said that if you tell me one single piece of information, tell me who wins Erie, that is who wins Pennsylvania, and then that is the next president. And that's exactly what happened. And that's unfortunately what happened in 2016. Trump carried Erie, and he ended up winning Pennsylvania and the presidency. So like, if you can't sell it in Pennsylvania, if you can't sell that in Erie, you really can't win Pennsylvania.
That's right, and we're glad to have you in Erie. Erie loves the Fettermans, don't we? So you've talked a lot about your stroke and the changes in your life and this campaign. Can you speak more to that and how that has changed you as a candidate?
Yeah, no, having a stroke, I'm sure most people all are aware of that, and certainly Dr. Oz has never let me forget that. But I also have been able to connect with a lot of people all across Pennsylvania that have had these kind of challenges, you know, health issues and kind of health challenges. And I go and I ask, how many people all across, may I ask anybody, how many folks here have had your own personal health challenge in your life? You know, keeping your hands up. And then perhaps, your parents, grandparents, God forbid, even your child. And that really speaks to, the commonality of that and just how critical that is. And I always said that I sure hope that they never had a doctor in their lives making fun of it, making light of it, saying that you're not fit to serve. But unfortunately, we have one, in my life saying that. And I think it's really critical and remind everybody that I'm able to fit and serve. But I'm so grateful to be here because that stroke could have gone differently if I was in a different part of Pennsylvania, perhaps, where they didn't have the kind of quality health care place, as well also any time of the day. And but that's why I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I said, shame on Dr. Oz, because they do take an oath to serve. And, we know you'll recover, and we're glad for your recovery, but there's no recovery for Dr. Oz. We just know that he just is who he is. So that's just that. Moving on, you were the first Senate candidate running this year to come out in support of scrapping the filibuster. What made you come out and say that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we launched our campaign, we called immediately that we want to call to eliminating the filibuster. And to eliminating the filibuster was always critical because it's understood that if you want to have kind of the important kind of core issues that we believe, not just Democrats, but I think a majority of Pennsylvanians all would like to see, enacted. And if not supporting the filibuster, you are suggesting that, there's going to be 10 to 11 Republican senators. They're going to say, you know what, I agree. I really love that agenda. Where was I wrong all my whole career? I'm going to join you. And of course, that's obviously never going to happen. So that's what I've always support that. And to get the important things done that we need to accomplish, eliminating the filibuster is one of the things I absolutely supported.
Thank you for that. And this is why we need you in D.C. So you launched your campaign just a couple days after January 6th. How did that shape your campaign and what you're running on?
Yeah. No, and it's actually kind of also shocking that Oz has a couple of people that was part of January 6th. They working on his campaign, and I'm sure all of you were shocked by what January 6th really was. I mean, were you ever watching it live happening, or what has that really meant to you?
I was shocked that happened, and especially being a person of color. I know that if they were people of color, it would have been totally different.
Yeah, and it was jarring. The last thing I would actually kind of think it was similar, that feeling of when 9/11. When you see the planes hit, where this idea where I watched this and I can't believe that you have thousands of people like overrunning our government like that, and how jarring and shocking. And now police officers die there. And now, of course, Trump and now by Oz supported pardoning all of them. Like this idea, the insurrectionists that how anybody could believe and try to normalize that is something that we just absolutely cannot ever accept as a nation. And to me, at the core of January 6th is the election lies and the kind of the conspiracy. And in 2020, there were nearly 7 million votes. 7 million votes here, and out of 7 million votes, there were roughly five illegal votes. You have more chance of stopping at a Sheetz and buying a lottery ticket to encounter actual vote fraud. And what was really ironic about that is that they were happened to be all Republicans using their deceased mother's ballot in order to cast their vote for the former president. And of course, they were all caught, charged, arrested, and now they're all on probation. And it's astonishing that something that during a pandemic, and that was using vote by mail the very first time, and had the highest turnout in Pennsylvania history, is safe, secure, and something that was true. And that now became kind of the core of the insurrection, that this idea that they were robbed of that election. And to me, democracy is the promise of America that, personally, you or anyone may love an outcome or you may despise an outcome, but we all accept it. And that's really the truth of what democracy is. And and of course I would stand for that. And you have with Oz, obviously, if you're willing to have those kind of individuals on your staff, you really think opens that whole idea up to that's something that it could happen again.
Great point. So we really are, on November 8th, we really are in a fight and a battle for the soul of our democracy. So it's really important for us to drive that point home as we go forward. Talking about abortion, what is the current state of abortion access in Pennsylvania, and how could election results in PA next month potentially change that?
Sure. During the debate, which let me say that it's far more pleasant spending an evening with you than it was with Dr. Oz. Always. And Dr. Oz never got me a pack of the best wings in America that you have. Of course, she brought at one event from our gangs the best wings in share. But at any rate, with abortion during the debate, Oz said that abortion, the choice between a woman and a doctor, becomes involving local political officials. True. And it really reveals what he thinks, that the choice belongs to him, or a Republican legislature that thinks that is not what is the choice that belongs to a woman and their doctor. And then they try to make Roe v. Wade as an extremist. And that's absurd, because to me, Roe v. Wade was the law of the nation, and that's the way it stood for 50 years. And to me, that's what I'm running on, and that's what I would absolutely codify, given the opportunity to vote in support for that. Absolutely. And please, obviously it's not a lived experience of mine, but how does that feel, like this idea that having this taken, now it's at a risk?
Of course, I'm angry and upset, and so that's why our Women's March was so important. And we're grateful to have champions like you fighting for us, and so we appreciate that. And that's why we are working so hard here in Erie to make sure that we get you down there in D.C. to be our 51st vote in the Senate.
And really a part of that, it's also the fact that now some members of the Republican side are even now talking about birth control as part of that. True, where this idea that if you can be so strongly pro-life, but to be not wanting to support and to provide and make birth control is available readily as well too, and because I can't believe it's 2022, and to be having these kind of conversations is astonishing to me.
It is. It is. Now, Dr. Oz is trying to paint you as an extremist, especially on crime. But the reality, I know, is that you have a strong record on crime. Mm-hmm. So can you speak more to that?
Yeah, of course. I'm actually a Democrat that's running on my record on crime. As I was a 4-term mayor of a community in western Pennsylvania. I'm sure many of you are familiar here, Braddock, Pennsylvania. And Braddock is a community that had a significant gun violence issue. And I came to Braddock 21 years ago to be a GED instructor. And that's what I wanted to spend my career, is just helping young people get their lives back on track. And after several years of running that, 2 of my students were gunned down, and I ended up to run for mayor. And it was pretty improbable that I was going to win. I didn't really look like a mayor. I wasn't a long-term resident there at that time, but I won by one single vote on this idea to make sure I won a prime. My promise was to fight and address gun violence, and that's exactly what we did. We partner with our police. We funded the police. We supported the police. But we also, what was also critical is that we created a very kind of relationship and partnership with the community as well, too. It was a community-based kind of philosophy that the police and the community have to be working together, and they have to be both working as the same kind of team together. And the community can't ever be perceived as being suspicious or at odds, and that's exactly what happened. And because creating those kind of partnerships, we were in it to go for more than 5.5 years without any murders or any kind of deaths at all during that time. For the first time ever. For the first and only time that's ever happened during before I became mayor, and that was one of the things I was most proud of doing during my time here. And I'd also like to point out that there's not one single candidate in this race that has that kind of campaign in this campaign as I do. And here's a guy that living in New Jersey in his gated mansion, that never done anything about crime, never had a plan for any kind of plan, just some words that he put up on his website a couple days ago. He's never fought. And I'm running on that record, and that's the fact that all they can do is try to lie and distort that, because that's really how they've chosen to kind of, I call that the Oz rule, that when he's on TV, he's lying. And that was during his career on his TV show, and when he's during his campaign, and when he was during the debate.
And I would just like to add, because I think you're very modest about this, but even as Lieutenant Governor, you've been very transformational in criminal justice reform with second chance law. And that has really transformed, giving individuals an opportunity to have a second chance. And so I'd like to thank you for that, because that has really made a difference for us.
Yeah. And again, you have the Oz rule lying about that and trying to turn that something. Now, the overwhelming majority, 99% of all of that, was non-violent kinds of convictions that somebody made a mistake earlier in their lives, or maybe during it because they were struggling with addictions, or they were in poverty, or for whatever reason. And they ended up to go on to be living an upstanding life. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were being punished for the rest of their lives. And this idea they were living, being outstanding citizens, they made amends, and they got a second chance to have their record cleaned, and they were able to get a better job. They were getting a better back to their education. They could even volunteer at their child's school. At the school, they couldn't. And specifically, some kind of silly conviction for marijuana usage, or just these kind of simple, and they were all violent things. And it's thousands of people, and I'm actually very proud of, because giving somebody a second chance in their lives to be able to be more productive and fully participatory citizens as a result of that. Too. So yeah.
So on to the economy. With inflation, we know this is a huge issue, but also one that many Democrats are shying away from. I also know that you've been talking about it on the campaign trail. Why do you think that this is a winning issue against Dr. Oz?
No, not at all. I think inflation is very real. It's a tax of working families, and it's things that we absolutely have to push back again. And here with Oz, here's somebody that has never personally experienced what inflation can feel like, and how it can actually impact him personally. And how can you possibly be fighting and understanding inflation if you've never experienced it personality? And I think we have to be able to push back against and not stand for the kind of corporate greed. I think it's rampant here, and the kind of price gouging as well. And you look at Shell and some of the other oil companies. It just announced this week that he had $10 billion in profit. And if inflation, as we know, hurts Pennsylvania families, and it leaves them to have record profits, there has to be a strong correlation there. We really have to push back and stand against that kind of corporate greed and that kind of price gouging. And another thing that we have to do is we have to produce more and manufacture more things just in Pennsylvania and in America too. Oz, during his career, with his merchandise with the Oz name on it, was all actually manufactured in China. And, how would somebody be able to kind of be more aggressive in standing up to both to China, but also to be a champion for manufacturing more in Pennsylvania and America? It's obviously a choice. So I believe in having that conversation needs to have, and one that again, it's a very clear choice in this election as well. True. And if I may also add, true, is that they also are criticized. They criticize the idea of the kind of investments in, whether it's in infrastructure, whether that is in helping working families, and they're like, well, there's trillions here, trillions there, but they had no issue with the trillions in the gigantic corporate tax giveaways to there. Trillions of dollars, true. They don't have a problem with trillions of dollars when it goes to the kinds of who they stand with. And, both now Oz would absolutely supports maintaining them, and I support, making sure that they pay their fair share on that as well. And if you want to really be serious about inflation, addressing that and readjusting where the corporate taxes should have been and they should return is also an issue as well, too.
So you've received a lot of endorsements from unions. I happen to be a member of AFSCME and a daughter of a steel worker. So my father was a 50-year member of the United Steelworkers Union. So tell me, well, thank you. Tell me about your relationship with the unions and why you think organized labor is so important.
Yeah. So how many union members are in the house? Yeah. Steel workers for Fetterman. I love, it's just like, I'm so proud, it was, one of the very first endorsements that we ever had, and one that I take very personal. I live across the street from the mill in Braddock, the Edgar Thompson's plant, the Union Hall, 1219, and the union way of life to me is sacred here as well. And the argument that I go across Pennsylvania to union members is one, really, this core value that regardless of how many of the political issues that we all agree, and I hope it's all of them, but the one that there will never be any daylight between, the ones that will always support and stand and fight for, is that the union way of life is sacred, and it's got to be protected and expanded and nurtured as well. And passing the PRO Act is critical, is too. I can't think of few things more un-American than fighting against the union way of life instead of actually supporting it. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a steel worker, whether you're a governmental employee, this idea, like, don't you deserve to kind of have a wage that you can live in security? That you can have health care, the kind of health care, I found it really useful for me, one time. The same kind of quality health care that saved my life should be able to be there for you and every American. it's to me fundamental and very American as well. I have never encountered like a greedy union member. It's just about sharing the kind of wealth that they produce, and to me that is, the unions have built your community. They have built our commonwealth. They've built the nation. They created the middle class. It's revolutionary and progressive, but so simple. This idea, like, oh my gosh, workers get an actual be able to participate in that. It's really amazing. And also, they actually invented the weekend too. So that's another value of our campaign, and also the very contrast that we have between Dr. Oz and myself on that.
So we've come to the end of our questions. Is there a last word you want to leave with the people tonight?
Oh, gee, I'd like to talk about healthcare. I'd like to talk about healthcare one too. To me, I think it's a fundamental human right. And to make sure that every person that has access to the kind of care that would be there to save your life the way it saved my life, and that is, again, a fundamental American promise, I think, to me, that everyone should have access to quality health care. And not to be in the pocket of the insurances. It's about making sure that we support not only rural health care as well, that's critical, but also making sure that every American has access. And that expands that, whether that's expanding the ACA, whether that is lowering the Medicare age, as well as also I salute the Inflation Reduction Act that reduced for cheaper prescription drugs as well too. And I think that is just another core value of our campaign. And as I think, very critical. There's so much at stake at this race, and it's all talking about that could actually be related the control of the Senate, and also having the stroke. Also want to talk about the debate. I knew that it was going to be a challenge. I'm 5 months into my recovery of having a stroke. But, and I've always been very clear that I might miss some words or I might mush two words together. But I think showing up is critical. And I got knocked down, but I got back up. And for me, this campaign is all about anyone that's ever been knocked down, that has had to get back up, or any community that ever got knocked down that has to get back up. And that's really what this is about. So thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for always being consistent. Thank you for fighting for and with us. We have not had a better representative of the people, to be for the people, by the people, and with the people than you. So we thank you so much for being there for us. And we hope to return the favor to you on November 8th when we elect you to the U.S. Senate. So can we all put our hands together for our next U.S. Senator representing Pennsylvania, John Fetterman.
Yeah.